welcome back to the Why Not Today podcast with Leslie Kane. I'm Leslie. So I always start with why not today moments. So today we're talking about time and we're talking about the science behind time blocking, focus, and boundaries. So before we jump in, I want to talk about a why not today moment. I remember exactly where I was sitting. It wasn't Lake Ann Coffee House then, but it was the Lake Ann Coffee House, having coffee with one of my teammates. And she was a single mom who worked full time, was a Mary Kay consultant, and only had her son, not a lot because her husband worked in the fire department and had block time. So her time was very valuable. And so I had tried for a long time to convince her to use the weekly plan sheet, which I taught forever. But she fought me. So finally, this day at coffee, and I remember sitting with her, I brought one with me. And she, very frustrated and kind of mad at me, said, "But you don't understand. You don't have a full-time job. You don't have a child. Your life isn't busy." And I laughed hysterically. Yes, I don't have a full-time job. I don't have kids, but I have a very full life. If you know anything about me, I'm volunteering. I've got a big family. I'm always doing something. And my time is valuable and full. And so I had my friend Shani, we sat with the weekly plan sheet, and she had this full-time job. Well, she often had lunch with she worked for the chamber, and she had her lunch break then. Do you have to have lunch with them on your lunch break? She's like, no. I'm like, well, why don't you switch to coffees? And then during your lunch break, you can work on your Mary Kay business. And that was an aha. Also, in the morning, she would have time before work to do stuff. And also after work, especially if she had to pick up her son from daycare, that she could do stuff in the car before she picked him up. So she was able to find time in her schedule just by pulling this weekly plan sheet out. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So this moment really connects what we're talking about today, because so often we don't move forward because we don't take care. It's not because we don't take care or we're not capable, but because we don't create those space and boundaries for what matters most. So that's important, to have places for your time to go. So I'm not even going in that now. We're going to keep going. Just one FYI, I do not edit these episodes, because that's part of the Why Not Today message, that you just need to take action. And so I'm not going to go back and edit that, my fumbling over my words, because I think we're not perfect. Progress over perfection. So here we go. Why tasks expand. There's a well-known concept called the Parkinson Law, which says work expands to fill the time available for its completion. When a task is open-ended, your brain treats it as unresolved. That increases the cognitive load, the mental fatigue, and procrastination. This is why you can be busy all day and never feel satisfied. A good example, I always talk about how the activity expands for the time available. Say you've got all weekend to clean your house. It takes you all weekend to clean your house, doesn't it? We clean the corners, we organize things, we do all these extra projects, we stop and sit down and look at a picture. It takes a long time. But if your mother-in-law is 20 minutes away, how long does it take to clean your house? 20 minutes. So the activity definitely expands. So I try to have time blocks available so I can get things done. Now, I'm recording this right before, and it'll come out right before, we're supposed to get a huge snowstorm in Northern Virginia. If you're listening to this later in life, this is January of 2026. We'll see what happens. But I have all these projects I want to do. I just hosted my Why Not Today Connects luncheon, and we had an organizer. We were talking about snowstorms are my favorite time to get organized and do things. So before the snowstorm hits, and I have unlimited time, I mean, that's no different. I work from home, but I'm going to make a list of the things I want to do and give them time slots to get some fun things done during the snowstorm and enjoy the snowstorm, because we all enjoy having time off. So time expanding or tasks expanding, it's not about motivation. It's lack of boundaries. So there's also research around cognitive load, which shows the brain can only handle so many decisions before focus drops. When you start your day without clarity, you keep deciding what to do next. Each decision drains energy. Focus becomes harder as the day goes on. I talked about and a recording I did on Wednesday of this week, I did a kind of a brief overview of what we're talking about today, but I talked about my schedule. I had nothing on my calendar for the day. I had a million things I needed to do, but I didn't give things time blocks. I broke my own rule. And so my day got out of hand, went completely sideways. And the 2 appointments I did have on my calendar at the end of the day, I had to cancel because I was just off the rails with not a very good day. So when you start your day with clarity, you keep, as I said, you keep deciding what to do next. Each decision drains your energy and focus becomes harder as the day goes on. And this is why productivity isn't about willpower. It's about reducing decisions. Structure doesn't restrict you, it supports you. And I am the first to admit I'm a freedom and flexibility girl. And so I feel like if I have structure in my world, then I'm not going to be very productive, or I don't like it. But you know what? When I put some structure, even if it's different structure every day, it helps me be so much more productive. I have a good friend of mine, and we're going to talk about weekly plan sheet in a second, that her week looks exactly the same every day. It's color coded. She does this at this time, this on this day. I would go bonkers. My days and weeks are always different. So that's why I have to plan. So I use what I was taught years ago called a weekly plan sheet. And I do it on Sundays. And from a neuroscience perspective, writing things down frees your working memory. Seeing the full week reduces your anxiety. And I'm very visual. So a lot of times I could do the weekly plan sheet, write it down, and then not even have to reference it anymore. And then your brain stops scanning for what you forgot. So weekly planning moves decisions out of your head and onto the paper. I always say weekly planning is an act of self-leadership. And so if you want to try it yourself, I actually have in the show notes a link that you can get a blank weekly plan sheet. And it's basically a grid from 5 a.m. to I think 10 p.m. And it's Sunday through Saturday, and it's squares by an hour. And so what you do is you go through your calendar first. And what are you already committed to? Do you have a full-time job? Do you own your own business? Do you go to church? Do you have kids' activities? And so go ahead and put everything that has to be done in that time slot. And you can even color code it. If it's family, it could be blue. If it's making money, it could be green. That helps me to balance my week. And then you go in and fill in the other things you need to do. So if you're self-employed, own your own business, or there's things you need to get done, say you have a side hustle and you want to work on it 5 hours a week. You go through the calendar and highlight the times you're going to do it. You decide ahead of time. And so what this does is two things. It tells your time what you're going to do with it, and it helps get rid of the guilt. If you own your own business, you know that one of the best things you don't have a boss, and one of the worst things is you don't have a boss. And so when nobody's telling you or what to do, when you own your business, it never stops. I mean, we start a business so we can have freedom and flexibility, and then we work all the time. So if you decide I'm going to put 5 hours into this, and you do those 5 hours, then when you're with your family and doing the fun things, you don't feel guilty. Also, a good idea is to have this weekly plan sheet. I keep it on my office door so I can see it from my desk. If you've got a family, it might be worth putting it on the refrigerator so they know when mom or dad is working. And then you get the fun time and you get rid of those guilts, and you're not feeling like you should be working all the time. Also, it works to, like, say you have an appointment scheduled. You've got Tuesday nights are the nights you're going to do appointments for your business or for whatever. And something cancels. That doesn't mean you call your best friend and say, let's go grab some wine, although that's always fun. It means take that time. I always played a game. If an appointment had to reschedule, I would spend that time making phone calls and try to replace the income I would have made with that appointment. So that's what the weekly plan sheet is. And remember, you can get it in the show notes. So just a quick commercial to talk about Why Not Today. If you don't know what Why Not Today, maybe this is your first time listening to the episode. What is Why Not Today really about? Well, it's a podcast movement, and we support entrepreneurs in taking bold, clear steps to start businesses, get unstuck, and grow with more clarity, confidence, and courage. I created Why Not Today with a Why Not Today moment in honor of my dad, Patrick Kane, who often said, why not today? I started the podcast on March 5th, 2022, which happened to be March 5th was the day my dad was born and the day he passed away. So I say I don't procrastinate. I am deadline driven. So that was my deadline. I started it, and 100 and I don't know how many episodes now. But once I did the podcast, then I was like, you know what? maybe I'll start a business. And in starting the business, because I have a 31-year career, Mary Kay, I found that owning your own business that isn't under a structure like a franchise or direct selling, there was a lot of things I had to figure out. A lot I didn't know. So that's why I created the Why Not Today movement business to help support entrepreneurs. So I do week or monthly events, weekly podcasts, trainings, workshops, co-working events, and probably my favorite, because I feel like it's kind of magical, is the Why Not Today Inner Circle, where I support female entrepreneurs, and it's a lateral mentoring program. So if you want more information, you can find out anything about Why Not Today and the Why Not Today movement. Okay, back to the show. Don't forget, you can get in the show notes, you can download the weekly plan sheet and 6 most important things list, which I'm going to talk about now. All right. So your daily priorities and the 6 most important things. Even with a weekly plan, your brain still needs daily focus. And that's where the 6 most important things comes in. It was taught by Mary Kay Ash, which was taught by somebody else years ago. And what it talks about is start your day. Like, what are the 6 most important things you need to accomplish today? Not the 300,000 things you need to do in a month, a year, because our brain is full of stuff. Those hopefully are written down somewhere. But when you write down what you need to focus on, the limits do create focus. The focus creates completion. Completion releases dopamine. It's interesting. 2 podcasts popped up that I listened to talking about dopamine just today. And then dopamine builds momentum. So you're not meant to do everything in one day. Just because something matters doesn't mean it belongs today. So the 6 most important things are the 6 most important things you need to do today. I have created a planner, which may be another subject to talk about, that then I add that as part of my planner. And so when I'm going through my 6 most important things, I'm like, okay, what is the most important? Is there a deadline? Like, are you doing an event? You need to get things done. Or what is a thing that's going to put money in your pocket if you have a business? Not the clean off your desk and organize it, although that helps with your productivity, but really thinking about what do I need to do next? All right, the next concept we're going to talk about is time confetti versus time blocks. Never heard of that until recently. Somebody connected me with Lisa from, I think, Organized 365, and she has a podcast, which hopefully she's going to be a guest on this one. But time confetti is when your day gets broken into fragments. A few minutes here, a few minutes there, constant interruptions. It feels productive, but leaves you drained. Your brain creates continuity. So if you think about, if you're old school and you've been around a block a few times like me, old time computers, we had to defrag them because it ended up with so much empty space of wasted space. So you had to get things organized. And same thing you have to do with your time. And so that's where time blocking comes in. So time block solves this by creating focus windows where tasks can actually get finished. Tell your time what to do. So if you need to record a podcast like I'm doing, this was scheduled into my day. If you need to do some social media posts and content, is that scheduled into your day? So why does time blocking work? It works because it reduces decision fatigue, calms the nervous system. Isn't it nice when you know what you're doing when? And creates urgency and safety. Activities expand to the time available, which I talked about. And when you give a task a clear block, it often gets done faster and with less stress. You work the block, not the entire to-do list. So to close, let's talk about you don't need more time. You need clearer intention with the time you already have. The week gives you clarity, the day gives you focus, and boundaries give you momentum. So thanks again for checking out the Why Not Today podcast and spending time with me. And this is your space for practical tools, real encouragement, and courageous growth. So whether you're launching something new or navigating a pivot, I hope you're leaving today's episode with a clear next step and a reminder that you are not alone. If you're ready to take the next step and find out more about what we're doing here in Why Not Today, you can check out everything and all the resources on the website, whynottodaymovement.com. If you want a complimentary coaching session, you want to check out some of my workshops or hear more about the inner circle, let me know. I'm here for you. And make sure you check the show notes for the weekly plan sheet and 6 most important things list I mentioned today. So this podcast is your bridge from inspiration to action, and I'm here to walk with you every step of the way. And if this episode spoke with you, share with a friend, subscribe. Let's start a movement of inspiring all of us to live our life, to be brave and pursue our dreams. Remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to take one brave step. And as I always say, why not today? All right. Thanks again for listening. And until next week, bye.